This is the Advanced Settings Space Drag Guide. In this guide, we will cover the basic usage, bindings, and the advanced options for space drag. All you need to do to use space drag is to open up the Steam VR dashboard by pressing the System button. On touch controllers, you will need to click the System button on your left controller. This is the Steam VR dashboard. Once you are here, if Advanced Settings is not selected, you will want to select it. And then in Advanced Settings, you will want to go to the Motion tab. Once in the Motion tab, simply select left and or the right hand, depending on which hand or hands you would like to use for space drag, and close out. And then the default bindings are to double tap the top button on each controller, that is the B and the Y key on touch and the B key on knuckles, to simply pull yourself for space drag. Now, in order to change bindings, first we need to launch into the binding interface. To do that, simply open up the Steam VR dashboard, navigate to Advanced Settings, the main screen, and select the binding option. This should bring up your current bindings. Now that we are in the binding interface, we're going to take a quick overview. For space drag, we will want to pretty much always be in the motion action set here at the top. If you need other actions, you may need to look at these. But as we can see here, we have the default bindings. As you can see, we have B button as a space turn on a click. A double click is our drag, and a single click is an override. And likewise, you can see that we have a similar settings on the right side. Say we wanted to add space drag to our A button, we would simply come here, click this. We want a new button. We want it to activate on a click. And then we would select our left hand space drag. And now with that, that's all we can do. We can exit out of this by clicking our System button and going back to game. But now our left hand would be a space drag. If you want to use some more advanced features here, we could say use a grip as a button, and we could see our additional options for other options, like turning on the gravity, reversing it, resetting our offsets, toggling our height, among other things, or using our space drag and such. But let's say we want to look for somebody else's bindings. What would we do? We simply go up to the back button, give it a second, and you can see here, these are community bindings. They generally will have a description of what they're doing. If you have saved personal bindings, they will be here, as well as our official bindings should be under the official bindings. Let's go and view, let's activate my personal bindings that I use. And now let's go in and edit them. And we will see it's a little different here. I still have my space turn. I have a regular space drag, so I cannot switch between my left and my right hands, but I only have space drag on my left controller, and gravity is the A button on my right controller. My trackpad will reverse gravity, and you'll see here that I have an empty one. And why is that? Well, if we go into our chords, we can see I have reset offsets. When I click my B button, my A button, and my left trackpad, I will reset offsets. It is important to note that on a chord, if you do not have an action assigned to a button, you will need one of these empty ones. Otherwise, you won't be able to add that button as an option. So if we went to add a new chord, say to apply offsets, you could see if I wanted to use my right trigger, I don't have it as an option. But if I close go to trigger, use it as a button, and just leave it empty like this, and then go to chords. We would now have an option to use the right hand trigger. That is a basic overview of the bindings as they pertain to Space Drag. If you need a more complete look, there is a guide on the GitHub for how SteamVR input system works. We're going to take a look at some of the advanced features of Space Drag now. And first up is ignore boundary state. This causes us to ignore some chaperone warnings, and when you click it, it may allow some people's Space Drag to work if it didn't previously work. If it does fix your Space Drag, it will not persist. You will need to click it every time you restart. Next up, we have our comfort mode. The comfort mode allows you to move in discrete steps rather than smoothly. This should help with comfort, but as you can see, we move in discrete steps rather than smooth. The higher the value, the more you have to pull before you do any movement. Next up, we have force bounds. This causes the chaperone bounds to show up, and while you are dragging, as you can see here. Drag multiplier causes a multiple to apply to how you move your hand. So if you move your hand 1 meter with a drag multiplier of 3, you will move 3 meters instead. This is great if you are small, you will move much quicker, or you have to pull a much smaller amount of time. Next up, we have our gravity related features. First off, you can see that we can toggle gravity, and if we do that, we will fall down to our floor. You can toggle it on and off here. As you can see, it's on, and if we toggle it off, we will stop. Or I have it on a keybind, you can toggle it on there. Next up, we obviously have our different gravity values. I like mine on Moon personally, but these are quick shortcuts to adjust your gravity, and you can see that gravity is much quicker. Or in the case of Jupiter, very, very quick. Next up, we have save momentum. What this does is when you toggle off gravity, it will save your momentum. So I toggled off gravity with a keybind, but then when I turned it on, I kept my momentum and continued moving like I had previously. Next up is friction. This is essentially the exact same as you would have real life friction, and it causes you to slow down pretty rapidly and fall instead of kind of going on forever. And finally, our last option here is fling strength. And what this does, you can see this is me by default. I'm not really going far, but if I turn my fling strength on, now when I let go and gravity's on, I will move much, much farther as there's kind of a multiple applied in my movement. That concludes the advanced features and should give you a pretty good idea of how Space Drag works in advanced settings and several of the options that you can have. On screen, you will see additional resources links if you need more information. It will also be in the video description. Additionally, if you would like to support the project, the best way is always to just purchase the donation DLC on Steam, but you could also support me directly on GitHub via GitHub sponsors.